Back for a review here. I've got the true story, or really this film was basically covering a book of a true event, which was the Boston Strangler. The film was made in 1968, directed by Richard Fleischer, and stars Tony Curtis playing Albert DeSalvo, who was suspected and arrested for 13 murders. And he eventually, apparently from DNA that was drummed up much later in 2013, they do believe that Albert DeSalvo was the murderer. He confessed, but they really didn't have a lot of evidence on him back at the time. Tony Curtis, this may be this probably is his standout role, and it's a shame that he didn't even get recognition from the Academy Awards. But I don't consider that Academy Awards to me is a popularity contest. It really doesn't have anything to do with the true merits of someone's acting talent or the movie itself. It's a political forum, I think, and typically used for favoritism. Anyway, Tony Curtis should have gotten recognition for his role. It's a fantastic performance. 2-hour movie, and he is actually, interestingly enough, he didn't show up until well into an hour into the film. Richard Fleischer is the director, who I didn't know this till I listened to the commentary track and the special features, but he was the Fleischer of all the little cartoons that came out in the 40s and 50s, like the Superman. Yeah, so it's the same Fleischer. And it's the same Fleischer that went on to do Tora, Tora, Tora as well. And the bomb, the financial bomb, Dr. Dolittle, which won an Academy Award, but so interesting film, and it's an innovative film. It used for the first time, the multi-screen framing technique, where you've got multiple things going on in small captions and each on screen. So at the same time, you're seeing, you could see at one point, you could see like 4 different women in their homes, kind of locking their doors at the same time simultaneously. Or you could see a scene where DeSalvo, or in this case Tony Curtis, is stalking a victim in one scene, and the cops are doing what they're doing on the other little box. It's very innovative. Of course, Brian De Palma is now famous for using those split screen type scenarios, but back then it was truly an innovative technique, and there was a lot of concern with that technique and whether it would play well to audiences, particularly from the producers. But the movie is a standout classic horror film. The first hour starts out kind of like a police procedural. It's very documentary style. You've got George Kennedy in an early role as the lead police officer, and then you've got the classic Henry Fonda playing kind of the Boston assistant DA that's overseeing the case. He and Tony Curtis apparently were pretty cool to each other, but both their performances didn't suffer. They did an outstanding job. In the last 40 minutes, when Henry Fonda is interviewing this Tony Curtis and trying to get him to confess, is just fascinating stuff on both actors' parts. It's definitely well worth your time. This is a Twilight time release, and I know those are expensive, but I think this was, for me anyway, this was something that I had to have, and it was well worth the money. William Friedkin does a retrospective of 20-some minutes on this in a special feature, and he waxes apoplectic about how brilliant and scary this movie is. He even talks about how he wanted to be the director, and unfortunately at the time, Fox was kind of married to Richard Fleischer, but in retrospect, looking back on it, and he admits this, Richard Fleischer did an outstanding job, an innovative job for the time, and Richard Fleischer's kind of his stylistically that suited this movie and Tora 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 and French Connection 2. All those movies kind of suited that docudrama style that he had. He went on to do Amityville 3D, which was not so good, which just goes to show you that not anybody and everybody, even if they're great directors, could direct a horror movie well. So it takes a feeling that he just doesn't have that. Apparently, just doesn't have the feeling for horror movies like some directors do. There's a commentary track on this with David Duval, which was fascinating to listen to, covering Tony Curtis's career, all the other actors' careers. It was excellent commentary. Highly recommend this if you can get your hands on it. It's just one Blu-ray, and then you've got a little insert, a small little booklet insert of the film talking about it, and you've got some reversible cover art, which shows kind of the split screen style, multi-screen style that was used in the film. Definitely recommend it. Certainly a top 20 horror film for its time. And, it doesn't use there is not a lot of violence or blood in this. It's a build up to the event, and you see kind of an Alfred Hitchcock style pieces of what's going on and transpiring, but camera doesn't thrust you right in the middle of a bunch of gore and violence, which it works. It still works very well. And William Friedkin said that he basically took some of these directorial stylistic cinematography and used it to effect in The Exorcist with quick cutaway shots. But if you're interested in film at all, the technical aspects of film, where you love horror movies at any level and almost all levels, I think the Boston Strangler is one that should be in your collection. So there you go. I appreciate you watching. Thanks.